Jesus is present in our lives as individuals. And when an opportunity avails itself, here I am, send me.
If I hadn't been going to this church, I don't know whether I would have been involved in another church. I guess you would kind of say it kind of changed our lives.
The greatest legacy is the faith of those the dear souls who've gone on before. Oh, I have so many memories.
It amazed me to learn of the transitional periods, times when I didn't know we had a depression here in California before the turn of the century, before 1900. And our church, we had to borrow heavily. Borrow heavily was $354. It seems that there was always someone, a family or a personality or someone that came through 3 or 4 major times since 1894 that pulled us back together again.
I was born in January of 1924. My parents moved to the northwest section of Glendale in the early part of 1926. Burbank Church was a little over a mile from our home. The church was then located at the corner of 3rd and Olive. The Glendale church was 6 miles and we had no car, so they decided to walk to Burbank. In June of 1926, they had the groundbreaking for the original building, and I understand that I was at that groundbreaking service. I don't remember it because I was just barely 2 years old, but I understand I was there. I joined and was baptized in September of 1933.
Both sides of my family started coming here in the 1920s, and my dad was baptized in the old sanctuary, which is now the Upper Fellowship Hall, was the sanctuary. When it was dedicated in 1927, he was baptized on Dedication Sunday in that building.
Well, I joined the church with my family in 1928. There were 8 of us children, 5 girls and 3 boys. And my mother and father, and after church, my mother always had dinner cooking as we came to church, Sunday school and church. And we would have our friends come over, we'd have dinner together, and I remember so often W.W. Collette, a dear gentleman of this church, was alone, and my father would bring him along quite often.
We moved to Burbank in 1938, August. My dad worked at Lockheed Aircraft, and I went to Burbank High School. And in '39, a friend asked myself and 2 of my girlfriends to come to Sunday school. I was baptized in September of 1940.
We met in high school, and after dating a few times, she invited me to come to church with her one morning. And that was the start of joining the church about 1940.
In 1954, we came from Ohio, and Don was with Lockheed at that time.
We moved out here from Cincinnati, Ohio when I was 3 years old, and I have been attending since then.
My mother, my brother, and I and my grandmother started coming to First Christian Church in the late 50s, primarily because one of my good friends in elementary school and junior high school was very active in this church, the McEwen family.
We have been attending First Christian Church in Burbank since the summer of 1960.
Well, my husband bought a beauty shop in Burbank, and one of his patrons is a member of the church here. And they got to talking about churches, and we belong to the Alhambra Christian Church. And she said, why don't you come to our church, First Christian? So we did, and we liked what we saw, and we liked the friendship of people here, and so we joined it.
My mother went here when she came home, back and moved here from Santa Monica. She always came to this church. She walked here every Sunday.
It was probably close to 40 years I've been in this church.
I've been attending since Carol and I were married, which was January 20th of 1973.
Tammy's been coming here ever since she was born.
I started as pastor here in November of 1991 and was pastor until the end of December of 2001, so 10 years.
I've been the pastor of First Christian Church of Burbank for the past 5 years.
I was in the small group of Christians back in 1894 in Burbank, where the Lord sent His servant to establish a congregation. I am thankful that I have been able to see the congregation grow and progress through the many years. It has been through trusting in the Lord, through the mist of tears, prayer, many hardships, and great joy that this church has been built on the solid rock of faith in Jesus Christ. I have seen many saints come in and give the best years of their lives to the church and then pass on to life eternal with the Lord. The building of the beautiful church home in which the congregation meets and the sending out of missionaries were once dreams, but now have become realities, for which I give the Lord all the praise and glory. May the Lord continue to send a blessing upon His church throughout the years to come. Yours in His name, John H. Huntley.
My favorite memory was the day I met the woman I married. We met here at the church. We were in the same Sunday school class. However, at the time I met her, we were just friends because she was already spoken for, and she married right out of high school.
We met in high school. She sat behind me in I think English class, kept copying my papers.
Oh no, I didn't do that.
Steve and I met when they started attending, and in the youth group, and we were active in the youth group together.
We had met as kids from the youth group, and of course my husband liked everybody else but me, which is the way life goes. That's okay.
Yeah, but it ended up pretty good, huh?
I don't know.
Sandy's brother was my best friend growing up. And so we were involved in scouts and in church and in sports at Burbank for a long time.
I would say fondest memories would just be the relationships we've developed with the members of the congregation.
And one day, Lola McEwen, one of our saints of the church, said, Janet, would you team teach with us in the junior A department? And I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I said, Lola, I would love to do it, but I'm afraid if I do, Boyd won't be coming to church with me. And she said, do you think he would team teach with us? Because a man in the department would just be wonderful. I said, well, let me ask Boyd. And I asked Boyd, yeah, he'd do that. And from that day forward, he was in the church heavily involved.
I guess one of the things that really sticks out and is today for me is my going away lunch that we had, and the warm feelings that people had. We were down in the lower fellowship hall, and it was just, you could hardly hear in there. There were so many voices and so many people from 10 years whose lives that we together as a church had touched.
Well, my fondest memories, I think, is on Sunday night in the old sanctuary, had a large mixed-up choir, just a bunch of us young people. There must have been about 30 of us. And we'd just get up there and sing and yell and just have a fantastic time. And afterwards, her sister and brother-in-law lived across the street one up a house or two, and about 8 or 10 of us would get together and have huge hamburgers every Sunday night.
One year at Christmas, somebody thought that since Mac and I were both good dancers, they would play Jingle Bell Rock, and we jitterbugged in the aisle.
There was always a lot of joy and camaraderie, you know, with everyone.
For the first time when Dwayne Serban was hired here, it was the first experience of the two of us being pastored by a gentleman who was younger than we were. Prior to that time, all of our pastors had been what we'd call senior citizens. Senior citizens.
That's where we are now.
So we had a new experience. All of a sudden, the pastor we were looking up to, not as old as we were.
We were the youth group sponsors when we were newlyweds. We had a really terrific youth group. In fact, some of the people that attend now, Dave and Sandy Ingle, were in our youth group at the time. I think we were blessed by that interaction with the youth group ourselves.
Oh, I have a lot of fond memories. And some of the big occasions that you get to celebrate with people. I can remember the baptisms and people that I've baptized, baby dedications, weddings, and so those are some of the highlights. There's so many of them. But even just recently, I think the way the church embraced my family when we were going through kind of a time of grief when my mother-in-law passed away, and just the pouring out of love that people showed us during that time. That's probably one of my fondest things that I'll take in my heart with me always.
I think there's just the whole cycle of life feeling to it, as far as, we're born into it, our children are born into the church, and as family members, we married here, family members passed away. In December, my mom's, Madeline, divorced. Memorial service was held here in this sanctuary too, so lots of memories, lots of memories.
When this 57 building, our present sanctuary, was built, it was important that we move and keep that beautiful stained glass window. When this present sanctuary was being built, Uncle Sherman Teal, back in Alabama, had owned a brickyard, so he knew bricks. And at one point, partway through the building, the bricks did not meet his standard. And he had them tear down some of the wall.
We've seen the ups and downs of the church over the years, and thank God there's been more ups and downs.
The morning of February 9th, 1971, the Sylmar earthquake struck, and our 1927 building suffered probably the most severe damage of any building in Burbank. The parapets on top of the building fell.
I drove down the street and there were a pile of bricks. The whole front facade and everything was gone from the front of the church.
And the scouts were helping to clean it all off. And the people of the church came down and literally chopped the cement off of the bricks to salvage them, to sell them. So that was used as part of the funds, I guess, to help with the church whenever we were rebuilding.
We actually have some of the bricks that were from the church that when it fell in the earthquake.
The congregation, whoever is here at the time, seems to rise to the occasion and do what needs to be done so that there is a legacy here and has been here for over 100 years.
In February of 1973, somebody tossed a container of gasoline in our choir room and lit a match and set fire to it.
I remember our youth group was getting ready for a Valentine's party. We were having a Valentine's party, and we were the boys had all come down to decorate the Cairo room, and we brought posters down, and we put lights all over the place, and put 4 or 5, outlets, pulled cords into it, and put extension cords into everything. We had cords running all over that room. Okay, it was a total fire hazard. We were so excited about it. Went home, went to bed.
And looked out my bedroom window at 11 o'clock in the evening and saw the flames shooting up. And it was at that time the fire department was called, and it was fully engulfed, the old building.
In the middle of the night, I heard the phone ring, and my dad leaves home and find out there's a fire at the church. And my first thought is, oh my God, we set the church on fire with all the electrical outlets we'd strung through this whole thing. And went to school the next day and talked to all the guys, and we rode our bikes down here right after school, and we're told no, that the fire started in the basement.
So as a result, not only did we have much destruction there, but we had smoke damage clear through everything.
We had a work party that came in here to the church within our own, people, and literally washed this part of the building completely down because it had smoke damage in here. But the fire was in the 27 building. But that, I think whenever you have things that happen, it brings you close together.
And now you look back at it, and it's hard to remember, although that's been 34 years ago, it's hard to remember that the fire was here. And I think it's really an indication that, the building, although very important, and important to us as Christians, it's more important is the relationships and the understanding that earthquakes and fires happen, and is how we relate and how we overcome these catastrophes in our lives and how we deal with them.
The 94th earthquake was a major event because prior to that, this church was at a crossroad. In the early 90s, the city determined that buildings that were, to make them earthquake-proof, had to be retrofitted.
When I was hired, it was the seismic retrofit was, kind of put before me. Do you think you can do this? And everything. I had no idea, but, well, sure, let's do it. And it was amazing that we finished that in September and got everything all handled off with that, and then in January that hit. Would have lost the building, would have lost the old building. There's some cracks that still show over there where the back wall would have separated. But that happened the week before we celebrated our 100th anniversary. That happened on Monday, Martin Luther King, and that next Sunday was supposed to be our kickoff for our 100th anniversary worship service, and we had 200 people planning on being here and things, and it was a amazing week to begin to work through the events of the earthquake, and also understand what that meant for us, and yet to do like we're doing now, and to look at the future and where we were going.
We were very much at the crossroads as to how we were going to pay for it. We were stepping out on as we've done many times, on a step of faith to pay for and fund the retrofitting of that building rather than tear it down.
Legacies are, I guess, visions of people of wanting to build the initial sanctuary here in 1927 and seeing a vision of what they wanted to do in the world, and then they built this sanctuary in 1957. And I don't know that we're building any more sanctuaries. I don't know that we're growing any more buildings, but what we are is nurturing and growing people.
To continue the legacy that came before us, and to make sure that the people that came before us aren't forgotten and all their efforts weren't forgotten, and to sort of instill in the current and future generations that same feeling of compassion and giving and caring that this congregation has always had.
The people that came before us, the members here, were committed to having a lasting presence here in Burbank, and it's a wonderful legacy.
When I think of what the church means to me, there's a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a church. It came in handy. It takes a church to fully complete a person.
And that's the legacy to me, is the church will be here tomorrow.
We as a church can make a fundamental statement that we are all God's children, and that it's important that we see ourselves that way, and that is our first and foremost identity. And from there, you know, there's so much possible.
The church serves as a meeting place, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. So we serve as a community, a neighborhood community. And I think that that's pretty much where we need to be.
The heart of ministry isn't about building big programs or building a bigger church, but the heart of ministry is where the heart of God is, and that's people truly living in lives of community with one another and being compassionate and accepting one another. So that's it.
And that's the legacy that this little corner lot on 6th and Angelino, the legacy that we can leave to the world is the people who have come from here and taken our beliefs out into the world.